Hey guys, I'm super excited to be here today. It's Jen and I've got a guest. My guest is from Kelowna in British Columbia. And at 14, he did an apprenticeship to be a forest firefighter. That's not something that we have really down in Australia. We have our community fire things, but that's super exciting. Except on that path, you headed down a bit of a destructive path around food and alcohol and drugs and all those kind of things. But then around 24 or somewhere in between, we'll get your story in a sec, you woke up and you went back to school and you studied and became an engineer, and you've done super cool things like human anatomy and physiology. I love that stuff. Exercise science, mechanics of physical transformation, psychology of behavioral change, and the art of coaching. But also you have got so many awards, so many firsts for natural drug-free bodybuilding and stuff like that.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good for I love anything that's in that healthy, close to nature, drug-free kind of state. But your goal, this guy's goal, I'm going to read it out. Well, his name's Sean, but his goal is to help people discover the shortest sustainable path to their goals, to empower them to realize their goals, and to do this by marrying science of exercise, physiology, and the nutrition of the art of behavioral change. What I love about him is just a super cool dude, and you are PT to one of my dearest friends and mentors on the planet, Mr. David T.S. Wood. And we were talking about you, and I went, oh, cool, we should have a chat. So welcome to the show, Sean.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jen. I appreciate it. I love it. I really appreciate your inviting me on and having me here. It's great. What else can I say other than thanks?
Yeah, for the bits of chats that we've had before we've come here today, I like grounded, real, practical people, which you come across as being, which is great. So have you always been that kind of guy that you just like?
Well, I think so. You know, like in the bio, really, you were talking to my background a little bit. My background's extremely blue collar, right? It was construction, and you know, I started work really early. I left high school early, but I went back to school to finish school because I felt that something was missing. I'm a bit of a construction worker and an intellect at the same time. So I think I'm kind of lucky that way. I get to relate to people because it is about getting straight to the point and, you know, getting some results and doing so, but understanding that it can be complicated and that we need to try to take what we do and bring it down so that people can understand it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's something in with leaving school. Like I left school at 15 and went back to school at 26. There's something about saying you're that very street smart, worldly, realistic kind of guy, not just the academic that's not grounded in reality. And I love that because there's more chance, I think, of giving more practical advice to people.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's also a question of desire, right? Like when you return as an adult, you know what it is that you want to do. You know you want to be there, and you're going to learn, and it means something to you. So I think that's important too.
So I love that you get the human body as a kind of a system, and you're all about having strategies and things to actually achieve goals with, with health and wellness and that. What made you realize that you had to have a strategy in place? Because people go, I'm going to get healthy and I'm going to do this and this and this. And
I got you. It's true.
Yeah. Later that first day or the second day, they're going, oh shit, too hard, I give up. What made you realize you need a strategy? Let's start there.
My background was in construction. And so I took engineering and I was a project manager, and I had started in the field and I moved from the field into the office. And my partner at the time was a behavioral change consultant with Price Waterhouse. And so she was in organizational development and strategy and business change. And for me, it was always about sets and reps and exercise and, you know, proteins and fats and carbs. And I was very technical. I was very much about how's the right way to do it. And I really quickly realized that just doesn't matter if people don't understand how to change, right? There's the art of coaching or the art of behavior change we were talking about earlier. And that's the thing I think that was missing. I quickly realized that, you know, if we all know what to do, then why don't we do it? So there was something missing. And that was teaching the strategy around how to implement, you know, habits and things that would help you get to the goal you were looking for. So that was.
I'm curious, what was the trigger for you? Because you were so off track when you were younger, when you'd be in the forest firefighter. What was that trigger for you to come back on? Because that led you to, you know, to seeing there was more with your health.
School, and I think it was, I think the thing was that I was just down a path that was not necessarily me. Like I wasn't aligned. I had this sort of dissonance between my personality and who I was and where I was heading. And so I was much more into school and reading and knowledge and learning things. And I really appreciated it. And even though I was a bit engineering in a sense, I knew that something was missing in my life. And that's when I went back to school. And I think, construction was the easy path because I'd been in construction. But what I really wanted to do was what I do today. So I did construction for several years. I ended up in Dubai working on the international airport there. And that's when I decided to change. I took an anatomy, like this was a while ago where I'm getting on.
No, we're not. Sean, stop it. We're youngsters.
Exactly, I know, right? It's experience, right?
Yes, we are very worldly, experienced
worldly,
people at our
exactly.
age.
So I took a nursing program. I took like a University of Athabasca here in Ontario or in Canada was one of the first distance ed programs that allowed you to really take, university level transfer credits. And so I took an anatomy physiology program, and then I went back to UBC in British Columbia here, and I took exercise science. And then I get to do what I love, which is coaching people and helping them and, exercising, working out all day long. I'm just lucky that I get to be with people and do the things I love.
You do. When you find people who come to you, because I know you also work with a lot of high-end kind of clients in your PT work, do they come ready thinking that there's a strategy, or is it still, do you find that the masses are just thinking, give me the quick fix? What do you find? What do you find with your clients?
What I find, and I'm not sure how it works for you, but what I find is that people really are, I have people who will be an expert in areas, right? Like who are so good at what they do. I mean, really high net worth, really senior individuals who can tell me, what's happening on a multi-million-dollar project or like who know exactly what's going on in their company, which may have hundreds of employees, and yet they struggle to tell me what they ate a couple of days ago, or we have these roadblocks with regards to these things that we struggle to change with, right? So for some it might be finance, for some it's health and nutrition, and so often we get caught in our area of expertise, and we don't realize that the same skills will transfer into something else, right? So that's when I start to talk about strategy, and strategy in the sense of sources of influence is one of the ways that I like to look at it and talk about it, right? So there's three things that really influence us. There's your personal abilities and your personal motivations. There's your social ability and your social motivations. There's your social network, your friends, your work, your colleagues.
Absolutely.
And then there's your environmental, like the world you've built for yourself. So that's sort of how, when I have somebody who really wants to change, then that's what I start with, because that's really, we need to make these things that we do. Like if you love going to the gym the way that I do, it's not a problem. I don't have a problem getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and going to the gym. But somebody who wants to, that hasn't implemented that habit and has not developed that sort of thing, then we need to look at how we're going to make that work for them.
So what are some of the ways that you help them get their head around that, to make that kind of thing? Because it's the same as me. I find for me surfing, because I'm up at 4:30 every morning to go surfing, and being accountable to my mates who I'm going to go surfing with and stuff is that environment of having those people around you. That's definitely part of it.
Well, that's brilliant.
What kind of things?
That's the thing. Like, so if you think of change and you think of behavior and you think of the way we are and what we do, the social aspect of our world is probably the most influential. It's one of the strongest, right? Just like what you just said, it's that accountability to the people that you've said you'll meet at 4:30 in the morning out in the surf, right? So that's one of the really big things now. And I don't know, maybe it's a bit different in Australia, but here, like if you've got your friends and you have, like, say it's Wing Wednesday. It's a very popular
Wing
thing.
Wednesday.
Wing Wednesday. So it's chicken wings and beer on a Wednesday night, right? And it starts
at
5 p.m.
Yeah, we don't do that.
So whatever your pub night might be in Australia, right?
Oh, Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesdays, exactly,
Taco
right?
Tuesday.
So it's pub night, and I'll have people. I have a client. I have one, like several clients, but one of my clients had been talking to me about this men's meeting that he had every Wednesday. It's wing night, and he's struggling to lose some weight. He's really struggling to sort of regain his health and fitness. And I said to him, I said, listen, man, eat dinner before you go to the pub, right? And he'd be
Mm,
like, but that's so counterintuitive. I said, no, like hunger is your motivation to eat. And if you're not hungry, you might have a wing or you might have 2 wings, but you're not going to have 20 wings and 3 or 4 pints of beer, right?
absolutely.
So it's really just a question of looking at it strategically. And I mean, don't give up your friends and don't give up your wing night and don't give up Taco Tuesday night, but just think about like a way to get around what you know is going to happen, what's inevitable. And if I'm haven't eaten and I'm late from work and I head straight to the pub for Wing Wednesday or Taco Tuesday, the first thing I'm going to do is, I'm going to get some wings.
Devour.
Exactly. I'm going to get it in there. I know. Yeah. So it's really a question of like, I think of just looking at like, it's a little bit of planning, it's all the things that make you successful in everything that you do, but just applied to your health and fitness.
Yeah.
And it's understanding what's happening next,
I absolutely agree. And that whole, the power of the people that we surround ourselves with
Oh,
has such a huge influence on so many areas of our lives.
it really does. It really does. But one of the things, Jen, I don't know about you, but one of the things I don't like to hear is when I hear people say, well, you have to change your social network. I'm like, so I'm supposed to give up my friends of 20 years so that I can lose some weight. No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to still hang with the same people. I'm going to enjoy the same things, but I'm just going to treat the aspect a little differently, right?
Yeah.
I'm just going to make it just a little bit different so that it works more towards me. I put in place roadblocks or I remove roadblocks, but I make it so that the source of influence in my life align with what my goal is. And
Yes.
that's really the ticket.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and you're coming from that place of prevention, so you're planning
Yeah.
around it. You're not waiting
Yeah.
to get down the pub or whatever it is and do that kind of thing. And then you can come more from choice than just,
Well, exactly, right? That's
following
really
the sheep, so to speak.
100%. It's that thing around psychological reactance where no one likes to be told what to do, right? Like you can't tell me
No,
not to pub, don't tell me that, right? Like you can't tell me what to do.
I have an inner rebel.
Basically, if you're a little kinder to yourself and you're a little more understanding and you're like, oh, I'm going to eat and then I'm going to go. And if I decide to have a wing, I'll have a wing or a taco, but I'm just not going to have 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of work with my kinesiologist around the fact that I have an inner rebel. As soon as, and maybe it's that I'm, a child of the 60s, but if someone says, Jen, do this, I go, fuck you got no chance.
Yeah, no, it's really it. No,
it's been like an instant default to my detriment.
Yeah.
At times, and it's something I'm so mindful of as I'm getting older to correct, because it's a default in a lot of people.
It is.
You're lovely calling it what you do. I call it our inner rebel.
Yeah, it's the inner rebel, and it comes even down to the way that we speak to ourselves. Like when I tell myself I can't do something, well, that's not the way it's going to be. I'm going to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Early morning Sean can tell later afternoon Sean what he wants to do. So that's how it is.
Well, there's also that thing that's built into us around as soon as we're told we can't have something, you can't have wings on a Wednesday, you are going to crave that thing.
Well, that's it,
almost
right?
Uncontrollably.
Yeah, it's the white bear, right? Don't think about the white bear, right? That's all you can think about is the white bear, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, that's why, calorie deprivation and all those kind of things don't work for people to lose weight, because you've got to, whatever kind of program or that you work with people, it's got to be lifestyle kind of sustainable long term.
It does. Yeah, it really does. It has to be habit based and it has to be sustainable in the sense of just maintaining like whatever habit was, right? So when it's like any of the things that we find ourselves in when someone it suddenly feels the need to change because it's been 20 years of sort of a sedentary or a really business focused lifestyle and not really enough on their health.
Yep.
Well, it's taken 20 years to get there, right? So what we got to do is we got to put in place the same little pieces that will get you, in a period of time, will get you where you want to be. It's trying to get there overnight is just not going to happen.
No, and we didn't get out of balance overnight, and yet we expect
exactly
the changes, the positive changes to come overnight.
Yeah.
So what's your number one kind of mindset twist for people who are instant gratification driven in the past and being able to move their mindset? Just curious. I didn't
just a way, just how to go from that sort of thing. Well, it's a funny thing because I make jokes about myself, right? Like, so I'm the person that shops at the when you're in the grocery store and I'm like, whoa, look, I need some gum. I need, because I'm at the checkout stand, right?
Yeah,
I'm the guy
yeah.
that goes home with a bunch of stuff that was, it's that idea of delay of gratification and just slowing yourself down. And I think that, what we were just talking about, the reactance thing is a big part of that, right? So, I mean, one of the examples might be if I've decided that I'm going to cut back on the pints that I'm going to have, right? And
Yeah.
it's, I have a friend come by and he's like, well, when are we going to go for a pint? I'm like, well, maybe tomorrow, but I can't do it right now today, right? I'm not going to do it today. So it's this thing around not saying, no, I can't, right?
Yes.
I'm not going to do that. It
Yeah.
really is just saying, that it's the same thing as whether or not you want to watch Netflix instead of exercise, or whether you want to read your book, or whether you want to have some taco chips today because your diet starts tomorrow. It's always this thing around like just understanding that really, if I want to, if I want to overindulge tomorrow, I can, right? There's no two way, there's nothing stopping me, but today I'm not going to, right? As long as I approach it like that, it's that sort of AA 24-hour thing, right? Like,
Yeah. I was just about to say, I did AA for,
right?
yeah.
I used to think of that. And I
big.
used to be really irritated by that because I thought it's presupposing that, oh, I'm just struggling to get through 24 hours, but it's not. It's just saying that don't say no, just say not today.
Yeah.
Right. And when you do that, you that moment passes and suddenly you don't really want it anymore, because it's really a question of want. Like we were just talking about, you get up at 4:30 in the morning because you want to go surfing, not because you have to.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And so I think there's a place from, and just thinking that I gave up alcohol in my 20s because I was an alcoholic, and I used the AA system. I used it for 12 months. I was fully immersed in AA. And
as do I.
Yeah, and it totally just helped me so much. It was great until I, was mind strong enough to,
just until
manage my life differently. It's a great structure.
Right?
Yeah.
No,
So within part of it,
I'm
oh, sorry, you go.
No, it's okay. It's interesting because I didn't know that about you and you didn't know that about me, but
No, I didn't.
I was in the program too. I'm in the program as well, right?
Yeah.
So,
So part of what I recognized years ago when I started studying natural therapies and was that dopamine reward. And I started, if I didn't have a drink, because I gave up drinking the same time I started studying natural therapies and stuff. And I started focusing or really celebrating the tiny wins in life through the day to get the little baby dopamine hits. As part of
so
a way,
speaking my language.
Yeah, it was part of the way that I was and I still do it. I live on Post-it notes and little bits of paper, and it's like,
I love it.
Yay, done.
I love it.
And it's like dopamine hit. And I for me, it works as a way to reinforce what you're saying. It's that, I can delay that because I'm still getting my little happy hits through the day. I'm feeding my happy hormone.
And you're celebrating the small victory, right? That's another big component of the things that I talk to people about. Like when you're trying to change, it's understanding that every single time that you win, it doesn't matter how small it might seem, it's a victory, right? So as most of us in our sort of lives are really, we tend to downplay our wins, right?
Yeah.
And we tend to exaggerate the negative things, right? And that's a really big deal, is taking sort of your detractor and saying, oh man, the world is coming to an end because I've lost this thing, when it's not that big a deal. And then saying, oh, I went to the gym, or I did this thing that I said I was going to do, and not really acknowledging that as a victory, right? And
it is a victory to do what you said you were going to do. Like, I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to surf on a crappy rainy day. Fucking celebrate that shit.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Energy to do
and
it.
that builds up. And so you have, so you'll have that cumulative victory, like that pile of wins that are big enough when you have a bad day, because we all have bad days.
Absolutely.
It's just that we don't want to look at our bad days and see them as so much more than our good days. Right?
Yeah. And if we have the bad, what in the past was days, they can become moments, because we've got that built up reserve of happiness to default to. It's
that's beautiful.
Yeah, it definitely helped me. And I worked that stuff out of, from going to AA. But that's another system. It's a strategy to, to it's
another system of just looking at things and understanding that, each thing will pass, right? Like, and then as you get more there's so many good things about what they talk about, like that I talk about, that like, I mean, one of my favorite things I talk about in relation to food and change is I also talk about halt, right? Hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, right? It's this sort of depleted physiological state that we can find ourselves in after a long day of work, and you didn't have lunch, and this happened and that happened. And this is the thing where strategy and discipline overcome willpower, right?
Yes.
Because if you pack a lunch, or if you do certain things ahead of time, like just a small amount of discipline will run you through those times when willpower just is fading, right? Because it fades.
Well, it does. And environment is stronger than willpower. So if your environment
yeah.
isn't set up for success, like you haven't packed your lunch and done those things, well, great intentions can be nothing.
Exactly.
Sometimes.
You might last a little bit, but you're not going to last very long. That's the thing.
I agree.
Right?
I agree. Yeah. We are really similar thinking guys, like really.
Oh, I like it. It's good stuff.
So we might look at getting you back in the future, but for short term now, because I like to keep my podcast short and sharp, so people can just go, okay, cool, sweet. I can just deal with that one thing, whatever. Yep. So what's the best way for people to follow you and your work? Because you've got so many good things to share.
Well, I have my website's good. And that's www. And then it's -life.ca. It's onelife.ca. That's the name of the gym, and the personal training company is One Life Health and Wellness. And that's, I started that up over 20 some years ago. And it was about that. It was about the fact that I look at this as we have one life, and so let's make the most of it. Right. Cool. So it's onelife.ca. And then One Life Health and Wellness is also my Instagram, which has a lot of my stuff on it as well. And I'll absolutely provide you with links, with all the links for that. And
so everyone, I'll chuck them in the show notes. Go over to the show notes at
that'd be great.
hacks.com, and I'll have all of Sean's how to be able to get in contact with him.
Brilliant.
Super cool. So nice. You are ending your day. I am into the start of my day. Go and have a ripper.
Yeah, it's like, as I was telling you, it's Halloween here in Canada. It's
I know. Go and play. You need to go and
not something you guys do, right? But
we don't do it, but you have fun. Go on.
The kids are coming, knocking on the door, so I'm going to hand out candy, and hopefully I'll give some to the parents too, and say, you eat all this, and then you have to come see me next week. So it's
totally yeah, you could use it to sell your work. Well, thank you for taking time to have a chat to me today, Sean. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Jen. It was good. I had no idea we were such kindred spirits. This is brilliant.
Yeah, we are. Well, that's why David wanted to connect us, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Super
Thank
cool.
you.
All right.
Excellent.
Catch you soon.
Take care.
Bye.